The 16th Legiones Astartes, Sons of Horus. The Sons of Horus were made by fate, the scions of heresy, the sons of the arch-traitor, and alongside their sire, first infamy. And their name would resound as a curse throughout the scattered and war-torn realms of humanity. Such is their crime that it is easy now to forget that the past was very different. And once they and their master were lauded above all the warriors of the Legiones Astartes and favored in the Emperor's sight. Born as the 16th Legiones Astartes of Terra, they would rise to greatness as the Luna Wolves and fall into the abyss as the angels of ancient myth, bearing the name of their Primarch. Before those dark days, they fought at the Emperor's side on Terra, and throughout the early Great Crusade, they were as stalwart and indefatigable as any. Their actions serving to exemplify all that it was to be a warrior of the Legiones Astartes. Brutal, ruthless, and unwavering, but also honorable, and once loyal beyond question. Their history is the history of the ambition of the Imperium itself and the flaws that broke its dreams of unification and glory asunder. Hey friends, it's me, the Ebony Otaku, the well-rounded nerd, really getting into building my Horus heresy armies. The big box. Love the box. I do have a Word Bearers kill team finished. And one of the things I love about this particular game I've picked up now, because she plays the Aeronautica, like it. I like kill team. Wasn't hard to pick up. And then also one-page rules, which that's fan-made, I believe, but OPR is really good because you can bring any old army against any old army. Like, you can do fantasy for sci-fi. My husband plays, like, the Orcs and the Grot, so he's real happy with it because he can bring his dudes, I can bring my dudes. Aeronautica is the same, it's anybody's flyers, so it can be Xenos versus Imperium, doesn't matter. Really, really love it. Horus Heresy, a little more complicated. We are practicing, but it's gotten me back into studying the lore again of the world, and I thought it might be fun since I've cracked the box and the rule book is here. If we went through once in a while and looked at the different Primarchs and their legions individually, since I've got this beautiful book in front of me. Now, I'm not going to read the whole thing because G-dubs exist. But it is still really interesting information. So I'm going to focus a lot on the Primarchs themselves at first, and then maybe later on we'll talk more about the legions themselves. When I make videos like this, I've thought about doing like highly edited videos where I have like the clips and stuff like that, but every time I've attempted it, I've gotten a strike, and so I just didn't upload the video. I find that I feel safer doing stuff that's in print and just letting my thoughts run free and wild across the internet, because I can't be struck or copyright claim for my own voice. And typically with printed literature, you are allowed to read it aloud as long as you don't read the whole darn thing, if it's still something that's within its copyright. So like classic English literature, I could read the whole Great Expectations if I wanted to. I could read all of Shakespeare to you if I wanted, because those are in the open domain. Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, I could read the whole thing. Dune, I could read the whole thing. Books that are still in print, that are still under their current copyright domains, you can read bits and pieces and not get in trouble unless you're licensed to reproduce for like an Audible or something like that. So I feel safer doing this kind of thing. But plus it's interesting because I got into Warhammer for the lore. I did not get into it for the tabletop game. I tried doing the tabletop game when I was younger. Sucked at painting so bad. Did get one really cool figure, which I had a Necron monolith once upon a time. I've moved a lot since I was 17, so no one knows where it is. It's gone. I hope it's making some nerd who found it at a random garage sale very happy today. But it's fun to get back into the lore and really work on the armies, because as I'm in the lore and I'm building my armies, like, it's really cool to like have a visual of everything that you're reading in the lore and in the books. And the other thing I'm enjoying is it's a fun family activity. Like, it got me into Magic the Gathering. I hadn't played Magic since I was a teenager. All my friends I played Magic with, we all went different places when we got older, which happens. That's natural. But I didn't have people to play the game with. So I just, went by the wayside. And then I married into a nerdy family, and they got me as a Christmas present last year all of the Warhammer 40K decks. And that did it to get me back into playing Magic. And what I love is reading, when they do these crossover franchises, how the rules of the cards that I have match what would be happening in a Warhammer battle. Like that, I love stuff like that. The Lord of the Rings cards are the same way. We got the Fallout decks as well. I got the dog deck. That's the one I picked. But I love stuff like that. And I thought, I can't be the only one who cares about these Primarchs and stuff. So we're going to start with Horus Lupercal and the Sons of Horus. Remember in school when you'd go to the library and like the librarian would like hold up the book to turn the pictures so you could see? That's what we're gonna do. This is Horus Lupercal. Let's move him closer. One of the things I love about the big giant boxes, they come with more than just build your army stuff. Like, this is the complete rule book for Horus Heresy Age of Darkness, but it also has a whole bunch of lore in it as well, and it's an art book. Look at that. See that eyeball in the middle? That's the Eye of Horus. Like the Eye of, So, different franchise, different set of books. We love Tolkien. Hey, imitation is the purest form of flattery. But yeah, look at him. Look at just the power armor. Like, that's one thing that, like, proportionally never made sense to me was power armor. Because no matter how it's done, you can't make it look like a human is supposed to be in there. But hey, hate the game, not the player. It's still cool. Horus Lupercal is quite the character. In the beginning of the crusading across the galaxies, it was just the Emperor and Horus for the longest time. They were the ultimate father-son tag team war duo, and his loyalty was unquestioned. So when you're thinking about the Primarchs and who they are in relation to their legions, you've got to think about them in that same relationship to the Emperor of Mankind, which we're going to get to the Emperor because they got a whole page on him in here as well. But the Emperor of Mankind created 20 sons. He had this vision. He is the longest lived human that we know of in the 41st millennia. He's the longest lived human that anyone's known. He has so many mysterious powers. He is wise beyond humans are able to be wise. Like, he knows everything. He's basically a god without calling himself a god. Like, he said he never wanted to be called God, but then he dies, but he's still alive, and he's psychic. He's got whatever. He's God. Basically, in the universe. Fight me on that. Machine God's still cool. The Mechanicum can do what they want out there on Mars. But he had this vision to unite all the worlds of humanity. So in the far-flung future, in the year 30,000, in the year 40,000, humans have left Earth. Earth is no longer called Earth, it's called Terra. It's in Firma. Terra Firma. But humans have left the planet. They have colonized planets and solar systems far, far away. And what the Emperor wants to do is reclaim all of the lost bloodlines of humanity and drive out chaos and the Xenos from amongst them and basically establish a human-only civilization across the galaxy. But there's a problem. The problem that the Emperor has with his plan, even though at its core it may be pure and altruistic, is separation over time and distance. You are no longer connected to what you were. You've become something completely new. I will use my own self as an example. I am obviously a Black American. If you didn't know that, I know, shocker, right? I don't identify as African. Even though that is obviously my descent. from somewhere in history. I only know my family lineage back to my great grandfather, who I knew when I was really little. He was actually the son of a slave, and obviously got freed. But his father was a slave. Great grandpa was like, oh God, he was like 107 when he died. Like he was up there. I was like 5 or 6 when he died. I was little. But you know, if he was the son of a slave, that means my great great grandfather was a slave. So that would have put him being born pre 1865, right? Yeah. So that would have meant my great grandfather as a child was probably a slave, because grandpa would have been born, if he was born, if great great grandpa was born in, like, say, 1850, he very well could have had kids. For grandpa to have been like 100 when he died, he would have had to have been born like in the late 1800s, early 1900s, something like that. Don't math with me, but yeah, around that time frame. Like, I used to know the exact dates, but I don't anymore. But that's, from me to my parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents, that's already 4 generations removed from Africa. However we got here, I'm still 4 generations removed, minimum. And probably I'm really like 6 or 7 generations removed, based on just where my family is from in the country, and how the trade of slaves moved across North America. So I can't identify as African. I respect my heritage and my genealogy. I love African lore. Once in a while, she puts on the garb, and it's a look. We don't waste that look. When we put that look on, we read something that matches the look. But I am American. I am American through and through. This is where I was born. This is where I was socialized. This is where I have my family, my job. Everything I know is here and American. Doesn't mean I can't respect other cultures that are not the one I grew up with, but I don't identify as something I've never experienced. And we are so far removed that most Black Americans, that now we are 7th, 8th, 9th generations of our family here, genetically we are separated from people on the African continent. Even though we might have genetic markers for countries over there, we don't even look. We don't look like our distant cousins across the ocean. If you look at somebody from Senegal, from Sudan, South Africa, Ghana, Nigeria, if you look at them and how their genetics show up, they don't show up the same way in most Black Americans, because we were separated, and then that breeding produced a certain look in humans. So we have our own culture here. Love where we came from, but we do have our own culture, and it would be very difficult for me to think that I could go across the ocean and pick a country and settle there when I basically am completely different, and that's okay. That's the problem the Emperor won't acknowledge. The people of Earth for thousands of years have been colonizing the galaxy. And I'm separated a couple hundred years from Africa. We're talking about generations that are 10 and 20,000 years separated from humans on Terra. They don't acknowledge humans. Most of them don't remember what Earth is. Earth is a myth to them, if they even know about it. And in physicality, a lot of them, they show up to these different planets and they don't even look like humans anymore. They have been so genetically separated. That's how we got, our ethnic markers here on planet Earth. It's that genetic separation over time. Traits breed through. That's why, there are certain features that are very prevalent in Asian culture, mostly black hair. Then it's how we all get brought back together. Because one of the coolest things, if you see somebody from like Japan or China with gray or blue eyes, it does happen. It's rare, but it happens, and they won the genetic lottery. Like, I knew a girl who, her father was Italian, her mother was Irish. I kid you not, this dirty heifer, she was beautiful. This girl won the genetic lottery because she had straight, long black hair that was just as thick and shiny as hair could be, but she had super pale skin and green eyes. I was like, how? Not fair. She's absolutely stunning. She's like Marceline come to life from Adventure Time. But that's what's happened with all of these humans and subhumans across the galaxy. And some humans are Xenos and Chaos friendly. They don't know what this thing is called Earth. The Emperor means nothing to a lot of them, but the Emperor is determined. He wants to bring all the people back into one Imperium, and he knows he can't do it alone, so he creates his sons. And we'll talk more about the creation of the Primarchs when we get to specifically the Emperor, but he creates his little family of sons, and they are basically imprinted with the genetics of the Emperor. We call that a gene seed. So these babies that he bred in vats, he ain't no mother. We do science to it. In the year 20 and 30,000, he did science to himself and produced 20 sons. And they each have their own legion. The sons were scattered across the galaxy. And as he goes through warring with his custodes and other armies that he's created on Earth, he finds his sons on different planets. And the first one he found was Horus. And the Horus recognized the Emperor as his father, which usually happens when the Primarchs encounter the Emperor. They're like, "Hey, Daddy," or they fight him. There's like no in between. It's either they bow the knee or they fight, and it's the same thing with the humans. So he gets Horus first, and Horus and the Emperor are kicking butt and taking names all over the galaxy, and they begin to discover the rest of the Primarchs. But for many years, it was just Horus and the Emperor. So Horus was as close to the Emperor as could be, and it's even said that the Emperor viewed Horus as his son, which is weird because he created all of them, but Horus is the clear favorite of all of the brothers. And as long as everything's cool and kicking and the Emperor's being cool, it's fine. Everything's good. But the Emperor and his secrets. Emperor brought about his own downfall, and Horus is infected with chaos. Intentionally infected. There were seeds of division planted in the legions long before Horus fell. The first heretic is more than likely Lorgar the Aurelian. He baby brother of all the Primarchs, and he does not conquer worlds through war. He conquers through diplomacy mostly. He does not try to raise a hand, and he worships the Emperor as a god, and everyone on his planet worships the Emperor as a god. But when the Emperor rejected his worship and destroyed the perfect city of Monarchia, Lorgar turned, and he wanted his worship to go somewhere, and he took it to chaos. And because of what was planted in Lorgar's legion, the word bearers, the interaction between him and other legions, all their little subgroups they have going on, infected each other and eventually got to Horus and brought down the Warmaster that the Emperor named to be ruler over all his legions, so he could hop back to Terra and do his experiments and trust that Horus was going to carry the bag. Horus doesn't carry the bag forever. Horus eventually betrays the Emperor. And not just betrays, because you can look at it in a couple of ways. Some people think that Horus didn't fall until he was infected with the Anathame blade. But part of the way chaos works is chaos doesn't force itself on anyone. Chaos looks for the seekers of their gifts, and they oblige. Chaos is a neutral evil. They're evil, but they're neutral. They are a chaotic neutral. They literally show up when they're asked to be present. They just want to watch the world burn, and they don't care whose world it is. They just want the world to burn. Period, point blank. It can be your world, it can be their world. They don't care. They're in it for the war. They're in it for the kicks. And when Horus is wounded, and the whole healing him and all of that, and he's stabbed with the Anathame, and it's infected with chaos, and he turns. At first, it's hidden that Horus has turned. But eventually, he lets the Nurgle cat out the bag. That's why I'm not going to build a Sons of Horus army. Like, I love the whole lore of his legion, but she's not Nurgle friendly. We don't do that in this house. we can stand with Khorne. We can stand with Slaanesh. We can stand with Tzeentch. We don't Nurgle. Nurgle gross. Sorry, Nurgle's gross. Fight me. But is Horus a villain? Is Horus an abandoned son? Was Horus always going to be a traitor? That's what makes the lore of such a well-written series worth it. Shall we read a little bit more about Horus? Well, yes, we shall. The Warmaster, Horus Lupercal. Look at him. Look at his little bald head sticking out. That's before he was evil. Once a world of riches colonized in the lost past, Chthoniya had been gutted over thousands of years and left a hollowed-out carcass. Death came easily, and its people were grim and savage as a result. But from this barbaric world would rise the greatest general the galaxy would ever witness, Horus Lupercal. Contradiction and omission tarnishes all accounts of Horus's formative years. For every grain of truth as to his origins, there are also a dozen legends and myths, the great leader himself only adding to the tally. It is believed he was the first of the Primarchs to be found, and spent long years alone with the Emperor before his father's attentions were split between his Primarch brothers. One thing remains without questions, and that is, both before and after the Warmaster's fall from the light, he remained a superlative leader, master tactician, and peerless orator, the like of which the galaxy had not seen before, nor has borne witness to since. Many will say he was second only to the Emperor himself in charisma and will. As Warmaster, Horus was a peerless diplomat in general, able to convince any of his brother Primarchs to the justness of a cause for which he desired their legions. To mortals, he was a demigod, whose majesty alone cowed Lord Marshal, though he was never accused of abusing his own majesty, instead always debating strategy in equal and open disclosure and respecting the views of those around him. Always Horus would be seen in good humor, surrounded by his brother Primarchs and Imperialis Auxilia advisors. It was the great tragedy at the age that the Emperor's favored son would fall to darkness and treachery. The spark that gave fire to the rebellion in Horus's heart must remain a mystery which can never be perceived by mortals. Only those who were there, that saw and heard all, may know, and they are lost. What is known is that during the time after he became Warmaster, Horus fell grievously ill while quelling a rebellion on the moons of Davin, and was taken by his warriors to one of the Davinite warrior lodges. What transpired within the walls of that place is unknown. All that can be said with any certainty is that from the moment of his stepping from the Serpent Lodge on Davin, Horus trod the path of heresy. Don't you love it? We're going to keep reading and we're going to keep studying the Primarchs. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you in the next one.